Welcome to the Leadership with Biana Kovic Show, and thank you for being with us. Our topic, leadership, focuses on leaders such as yourselves. We believe that leadership is a skill that can be learned through practice and awareness. It is our hope that our conversation will help you become more reflective when it comes to your own leadership practices and enable you to leave a positive legacy. Our very special guest tonight is Kathryn Martin. With over 25 years of experience leading arts and cultural organizations and mentoring consultants during time of change and transition, Kathryn is a leading coach, an entrepreneur, professional interim CEO, and transition strategist, and is known for her ability to see the deep value in others and to create the strategies and elevated language needed to leverage that value with ease, momentum, and joy. Kathryn integrates a unique hands-on consulting approach into intuitive transformational leadership coaching and creates the possibilities for breakthroughs and big shifts quickly. For some, that means launching a new business or catapulting and monetizing existing talents or making big decisions on what to do next with newfound ease and embodied action. In all cases, Kathryn helps clients find and speak the impact they are meant to achieve, and thus help makes the world a better place. Kathryn, good evening and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Biana, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Kathryn, you are a leadership transition strategist, professional interim CEO, and a leadership coach. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes. I coach and consult with mission-driven organizations and purposeful leaders, and I help them have the impact that you are meant to achieve. And so I guide clients from where they are, and I'll call that a point A, to an exciting and extraordinary point B. And I frame success and where you want to go in terms of impact, which also I happen to know means, when we're having the impact that we're meant to have, it's also success, joy, purpose, mission. And that can be either through times of transition and change and even crisis, or big opportunities. And it's all about, going from A to B and really transformation. So I'm looking to help people who are ready and curious about some kind of transformation and impact. And I do that, as you said, in a number of ways. I help organizations work through times of transition, times of leadership transition specifically. So I'm a professional interim CEO and executive director for nonprofits. Most of my clients have been arts and culture organizations, ballet, theater, performing arts centers, foundations, etc. And that's hands-on, where I go in and lead an organization forward while the organization is searching for their permanent leader. So instead of the board feeling like they need to rush through that process and also worry that the organization may lose momentum during that process, I come in and lead the organization forward as a professional interim. I'm not ever a candidate for the job by choice. This is, I help the board and the staff and even the community move from their outgoing leader's departure to the arrival of the next leader. I can do one of those at a time, and so then I also work as a transition strategist. Sometimes organizations have their own interim leader. Sometimes the organizations are preparing for a leader to come in. And then on the individual side, Biana, I'm also a leadership coach, where I'm helping individual leaders move through their time of change.
So what are the challenges that you have experienced as an interim CEO?
So I've led 9 organizations almost consecutively over 12 years. And very different budget size, different parts of the country. And what I realized is that people have very low expectations for leadership transitions. Their beloved leader has left. They don't have their new one yet. And so what they ask for initially is, can you just help us run the day-to-day operations? Can you just make sure nothing bad happens? And really, when I come in, there's such an opportunity during a time of transition and change to increase momentum, increase revenue, increase stakeholder engagement because the organization is at an exciting time. So I think the biggest challenge is overcoming very low expectations for times of change.
How do you make transitions comfortable for staff that works for organization?
Absolutely. So professional staff are, they bear the brunt of, or they can bear the brunt of leadership transitions. So, will I have a job? What's going to happen? The board doesn't really know what goes on, and now they're in charge. What's this? They love their organization, but what is it going to mean for them? When a new person comes in, will I be fired? They're going to change everything. Actually, on the board side also, there's vulnerability. I didn't sign up for this. Now I'm being asked to think about different things. I thought this organization was working on some exciting project, and now that might have to be put on hold. And we're in the newspaper a lot now because of this terrible transition. And also on the community side, the community is wondering, or the donors are wondering specifically, what's going to happen? Should I give? Well, maybe I'll just hold off giving until they have the permanent person come. So there's a lot at risk. And even when organizations have planned well in advance, things can shift really quickly. So there's a lot of vulnerability. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of concern. Why I like working in this dynamic is because everyone is awake, right? Everyone knows, come into an organization like this, everyone knows that this is not a time of status quo. They might not know what it means, but everyone is open. So that creates the causes and conditions for me, or really any professional interim CEO, to come in and say, okay, let's do some things. And the things that I do really are reflecting the impact that they have and helping them articulate a goal, an exciting goal, momentum for the time of transition. And I do that in a number of ways. So the outcome is increased confidence, shoulders back, increased communication internally and externally. Everybody knows how they're going to be a part of this, almost like a campaign dynamic transition. Everybody knows how they are going to help move the organization forward. And really, we're preparing the organization for their permanent leader to arrive, or even when the search is launched, when those wonderful candidates that you want to attract, when they're Googling, they're seeing some very positive news. They're seeing, increased attendance or increased revenue or increased all sorts of things. So this kind of snowball of confidence and connection more than ever before to the mission of an organization is exhilarating.
Some interim CEO positions could be a few months and some could be a lot longer, depending how long it takes to hire a permanent leader. Could you tell us a little bit more about it?
Absolutely. So a professional interim is hired when the organization has an outgoing leader that has departed for one reason or another. And they have a gap between when their next person is identified, their full-time permanent person is identified and arrived. And it's really important for there to be leadership. Now, there's a number of ways that an organization can deal with this. They can take an existing staff member and promote them, have them do their already hard job, and then add more duties to it. Sometimes a board member can step in. That has worked really well, but also kind of fraught with challenges because now staff will have a different relationship with that board member. And others, I'm shocked to convey, no leader is appointed, and there's just a gap because everybody feels that the organization has planned ahead well. So the time that you're in the job as a professional intern, really, I say should be no more than 9 months. And I have had exceptions, and there are good exceptions, but 6 months if you launch the search when you hire the interim, 9 months if you want to spend some time initially on really figuring out what you want. There are all sorts of reasons why. I think that after 9 months, the organization starts thinking that you're going to stay, to be honest. And that's not good. So, the goal is to have the permanent leader in place. But the length of time just depends on how the search goes and whether they launch immediately or not.
You mentioned that being an interim CEO is a very exciting time for the organization because everyone is so awake and willing to help and do the job. How do you ensure that initiatives and strategies that you put in place will continue when the permanent CEO is being hired?
Yeah, that's a big question. And the answer is, well, we can't. We can't really guarantee that. But the way I approach leadership actually and interim management is that I'm helping the organization, the leaders within, reveal their strengths, reveal their impact, connect to their mission and vision, and work together well. So, before when I talked about that feeling of almost a campaign, so we're working towards a common goal, that creates momentum. If we're having these conversations before the search has begun, that's even better because the board can start creating their own vision, which will then be really helpful to a search committee to then say, okay, well, therefore, what's the kind of leader that we need to help us achieve our vision?
So basically what you're saying is that you can put some parameters in place to assist new leader to either continue or wrap up what you started.
So the way in which we show up as an interim leader will help and empower the people that are there. And that's not to say, Biana, when I go in, we create new systems and look at job roles and responsibilities. And again, make sure that everything is clarified and defined so that the staff can, really do their best work, especially if transition is percolating and the leader maybe isn't addressing some of the internal structures that staff is bumping up against. So as much as we can to ready the organization, whatever that means, every organization is different, but ready that organization for the permanent leader. So when the permanent leader comes, they're not cleaning up messes. I also hear a lot, yes, we have let's say, a director of marketing position and a director of development position vacant, but let's not hire them. Let's not fill those roles until the new person comes. Now, in some organizations, maybe, I've never seen this, but maybe you can afford to have those positions vacant. But the fact is you can't. You need those income-generating positions. And also the fact is, most of the time, that the new leader in their first 90 days is not going to be wanting to have to focus on recruiting. They want to come in, have a team of some kind, and then add their value to the process and tweak it and change it. It really is, I think, the answer to your question. We're doing things that ready the organization, set them up, both mindset and, structures for the future. And I have to, 9 organizations and now more that I've helped with a leadership transition strategy, you have to stay out of the outcome. We can only do our best.
Interesting. So you can do your best, but cannot really predict what the outcome is, correct?
That's right. Mm-hmm. I do have to say, in my personal experience and some of the interim colleagues that I respect, the impact of our work does continue. And it's personalized, it's shifted as the organization grows. These moments of transition really are the moments that catapult the organization into their next chapter. We can't guarantee it, but really that is the intention, to transform and to set them up for success for many years.
Sometimes board is hands-off, and obviously during transition times, they become more hands-on. How do you strike that balance between being completely hands-off and then getting too much into the business of an organization?
Yeah, great question. So I find that in general, board members have chosen to give their time, talent, and treasure because they want to help. They want to make a difference. We, as leaders, have to help them have to find out also, how they can best contribute. If we don't, if they perceive that there's any kind of a void, human nature is they will jump in. Mm-hmm. So, or, I've had board members that think their job is to question and to have opinions about all sorts of things because that's the way meetings are set up. So I think leadership, the CEO, the executive director, really needs to make it clear what they are doing, the CEO and executive director, and where they need the board's help, and then help them help you. So, I like I said, I think that board members come to the table wanting to help, And in many cases, they may have not been a board member before, or certainly not for your organization. So early on, how can they contribute? And this is where, again, having that sense of momentum and common goal of impact that we're working towards, like a campaign mentality, can really, really, really be effective in recruiting board members. And then once they're there, knowing what we're all working together towards.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is it pays off to invest in the board development as well.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. And when I'm brought into organizations, let's say to facilitate an annual retreat or summit, and the executive director wants me to help point the finger at the board members who aren't engaged and aren't raising money and are getting into staff's way and all those things. It's been interesting to me to know, to realize, to reveal that they actually, if I ask them, so what's the exciting thing that you all are working towards? The board members can't answer. So you can deal with best practices, and we can do a workshop on board governance and roles and responsibilities, and we can tell them what they should do, and nothing will change, and they will feel terrible. Instead, why don't we start with the impact that we're having in the community and the impact that we want to have in future years, and get everybody excited. I mean, Biana, I've led board summits where there are tears, because what they are doing really matters, and we have to help us do what we're meant to do. Mm-hmm. I'm talking, of course, my world is nonprofit, mission-driven organizations who have a 501c3, a responsibility to serve the community, impact. And so often as board members or as CEOs and the executive directors, we don't continue to help the board be enrolled and engaged and know how to help.
That's so important for board to be engaged. Yeah.
It is. And like I said, I know of workshops where titled How to Enroll and Engage Your Board, and it's lots of stuff. As simplistic perhaps as what I'm saying, it works. Let's be working towards something that really matters. Think of when an organization is, building a concert hall or announcing a tour to China, and they need to raise money. It's so easy to visualize. Like, everybody understands. Everybody in the community even understands, right? It's a tangible project, and people get excited about it, and they know how they can help. So that's what I'm talking about. How can we create that when all we are doing as an organization is just, in quotes, just doing our mission? What if this year we're just, putting on concerts, serving the homeless, whatever it is? The negative, we can bring together towards a common goal and get everybody enrolled and engaged on the negative side too, right? There can be a crisis. Save our symphony. Good, that works too. But it's harder for organizations and the leaders within to really describe and get people excited about the impact. And beyond, it's interesting, it's hard because for those of us, any of us leaders and your audience listening, if you're working for an organization, for a nonprofit, where it's your passion, like you really believe in the mission of this organization. For many leaders, that awareness and that passion is second nature, and it's not spoken. You kind of just know it in your bones. And so we don't even have the language to describe the impact. We don't have the language to describe, why it matters so much, so deeply. We don't have the language to describe how it makes people feel. So this is what I'm talking about, and this is what I help organizations connect to so that they can do the work that they're needing to do. And not have the conversations be just about balancing your budget or increasing revenue.
And most organizations function with that set of mentality.
That's right. And those nuts and bolts, that's a given. Like, you have to have that. But you can't lead with that in your board meetings. You can't, it all has to be. So I'll say, okay, great. If we're presenting a budget, let's say an annual budget for approval, we need to weave in what will happen when you pass this budget. What will happen in 12 months when we balance our budget? What will have occurred in terms of benefit to the community that we serve? I get really excited about that. It's completely different than, we need to increase our budget by 25% or whatever the numbers are, Or even we need to increase our staff, or we need to do this or do that. We need to find the words of what is going to bring about.
Kathryn, part of your job was managing teams, and I was just wondering, how did you ensure that they all worked well together?
It's this simple concept that I'm talking about is almost the answer to every question, right? It's so, I remember one time I was leading an organization in transition, and I had actually even heard before my first day that there were 2 staff members who were very good at their jobs, but they just didn't get along, right? So, okay, well, I'm going to have to deal with that because we need the team to work well together. And I looked at the job descriptions, such as they were. Many organizations don't have updated job descriptions, but that's okay. I went in, and so I looked and I talked with them and so I asked a question in one of the meetings. It was a group staff meeting. I said, we were talking, I can't remember what we were talking about, but I asked them, who does X? Who's responsible for X? And both women said, I am, at the same time. And everybody laughed. Well, of course they're going to bump up against each other, because they were also surprised that each other said that. And they looked at each other kind of quizzically, so it wasn't it was they were shocked that each one thought that they were responsible. And so you can imagine, what that must have done to them as professionals. So after the meeting, the 3 of us met, we sorted it out, and then they went off and running, and there weren't any issues anymore. I'm sure there are exceptions to that, but that was just such a clear example of people not being on the same page, people on our team working at odds with each other.
Mm-hmm. So, that leads me actually to my next question. So obviously you gave us an example where the conflict was resolved very peacefully and the leaders were able to work it out and, work together. How do you deal when the conflict is not resolved, when people are not amicable to even, working towards resolving it?
Yes. So remember in the beginning I said, I frame things in terms of here we are, here's our point A, and so we first have to say, what is our point B, where are we all trying to get in terms of impact? So, early on as a professional interim, or, before I was consulting, when I was leading organizations, we all have to know what we're working towards. And at minimum, it's your mission to serve. So I wave that banner very high. I take it very seriously, the fact that we are operating under a 501c3. So my responsibility, all of us, the board, the CEO, executive, all of our responsibility is to serve the community, to educate and serve. So with that banner, with that stake in the ground, we as leaders have to make the decisions that are going to create the possibility for us to do our best, create the possibility for our organizations to serve the community. By having that understanding of who we are and where we're going, you almost don't have to do a lot as a leader, because employees will self-select. They will know that this is not for them, or they will know, and it'll help me in my conversation with saying, look, we need to make this change, or we need to have this happen, and we're not in alignment. And then if we can't fix it, after the processes that we go through in conflict resolution, then the employee knows it's not personal. It's for the greater good. Mm-hmm. So mission and vision, common goal.
Any thoughts on low-performing teams?
Yes. I wish I could come up with something even more profound, but it's the same thing. When we all know what we're working towards or what we're trying to achieve, a low-performing team, there's something wrong. There's a disconnect. Mm-hmm. There's not enrollment and engagement. There's not a sense of purpose. There's not a sense of thinking that I can make a difference. And that couldn't be further from the truth. So we have to really figure out, we have to enroll, engage, we have to inspire, we have to create confidence. Maybe they're underperforming because of fear of failing, or lack of confidence, or not having clarity. It could be all sorts of things that we as leaders have to take responsibility for and figure it out and be like Sherlock and look for clues, because we have to have high-performing teams. There's a lot at stake, especially in a nonprofit.
So obviously you're a very reflective leader. Could you give us some tips? How do you go about assessing your own leadership style?
I think at this point in my career, I'll give you what comes to mind first, and it's more big picture. But if I'm able, and this also starts to transition into the leadership coaching work that I do, but if I'm able to show up fully as me, so fully present, no voices in my head or lack of confidence getting in the way, if I'm able to show up fully connecting with the people that I'm working with, and thus helping the people that I'm working with, the other fellow leaders and team members, being their best self, that's a win for me. I celebrate. So showing up as me, connecting, being present, and thus helping people do their best work and be their best self.
So in order to be a very effective leader, you really need to know yourself well. Can you tell us a little bit more about that part of coaching that you do?
You're absolutely right, Biana. I mean, it sounds so obvious, right? I mean, to be a good and effective leader, we have to know ourselves. And that's exactly what I have found is, interestingly, a challenge for people who are going through transition. Or at least this question of who am I, what do I want, comes up during transition. And just like I was explaining before about my language about point A moving to a transformation of point B, when I'm working with leaders who I would say, one, they all are successful. Like from when they're viewed as outside, from the outside world, yes, they're successful. And yet they, for one reason or another, are either feeling the pulling to wanting more fulfillment, more recognition, more something. They're at some kind of a crossroads in transition. So again, it might be that they've initiated the crossroads, or that it's been done to them. They no longer have a job, or they're feeling stuck. All of these things that we as leaders will always face at some point in our career, a moment where there's an opportunity to make a change. And it's that moment where when I I get asked, Kathryn, what should I do? Do you think I should stay in this role 3 years? Because if I leave my job before 3 years, then the recruiters or my resume might be a red flag. Should I change industries? All of the what should I do questions. My answer must always be, well, it depends. Yes, there are industry best practices. Yes, there are examples of what other people before you have done successfully. But none of it is relevant. We have to find out what of the things are relevant. And the only way we can know what to do next and how can you be happy, or how can you have all of the things that you want, is to know what your purpose is, or I say, what is the impact that you are meant to have, and, what do you really, really want? And then to figure out that answer, there's a whole process to go through, but really it's framing again in terms of impact. What's the impact that you want to have? Because when you are having the impact that you want, when you are helping others, when you're making people feel this or feel that, I happen to know that you will be joyful, you will be acknowledged, valued. That can translate into money, salaries, it can do all sorts of things. So back to that, what do I want when you're at a crossroads? So many people don't know that answer, and my heart really goes out to everybody. So one, if your listeners don't know what they really want, that's okay. That's normal. When I worked on searches, I was, actually all of us, I'm sure, have examples of someone who has applied for a job, gotten it, I've got to leave my organization. I'm going to go work over here. No longer a dysfunctional board. Finally, there'll be the resources I need to do what I need to do. And 6 months in or a year in, they're not happy. They're not happy. So, that's an indication that the work really wasn't done. The self-awareness, the investigation, the collection of data on ourselves really wasn't done before making that move. All when I was working in search, let's say I was recruiting for an executive director role, and I would have 10 good candidates resumes on my desk, and all of them would have the skills needed, and they all looked the same. You also have on the organizational side the job description that looks like everybody else's, so that's another frustration of mine. So what do you want as a leader, and then how can you weave that in addition to your skills and your experience and all of the other metrics that society judges our success on? But how can you start communicating what you want in terms of impact? Number two is, what are the causes and conditions that you need to do that? And then, does the job that you're thinking about, or the new career path that you're thinking about, or the book that you're going to write, all of those things, are they going to get you what you really want? This is such a big subject, and I think I'm not doing it justice. But this is, this inward looking is so important to being an effective leader and being happy.
Thank you very much for sharing that. I personally spoke to many people who are experiencing exactly what you said. They are not happy where they are. They have this sense of fear, sense of obligation to their families, communities, and due to that, they stay where they are and they're really not happy. So how do you advise people that know where they need to be but don't have courage or support to move in the direction that they need to be going?
Oh, yeah. I get it. I mean, I was working 12 years as an employee, as a vice president of a national consulting firm, and very happy, and it's all good. But I started feeling a pulling, and I think it took me 2 years to launch my own business, to quit, to resign, and then launch my own business. It's scary, and the what ifs come into our head. What if I fail? What if I don't find another job? What if I move and I'm not happy? Or, all of the what ifs. So the way to work through that, and I get kind of stern when I say this, but really, we are all here to make a difference. And we have to figure out, what that is. So we have to know the facts about ourselves. So when you do, and everybody, if everyone could just close their eyes and really think about this, when you show up, when you are at your best self, when you're rested, when you're confident, when you're firing on all pistons, when you just that you're doing you, being creative, whatever it is, you're doing you. What happens? What happens to the people around you? How do they feel? Really, really need to go down to the feelings, because there's nothing more noble than making somebody feel good or feeling confident or knowing that they can do something. So once you identify through a process of really figuring out the impact that you're meant to have, then it becomes your responsibility to do that. So, you mentioned what if my family, what if this has a negative impact on my family in terms of income? Absolutely. We've got to be able to pay the mortgage or the rent. But again, think of that point B. We have to know what our purpose is and then reverse engineer it. Say, okay, well, how can I monetize that? How can I find a job where I will thrive and where I will be acknowledged for my value in dollars? So as mission-driven and purposeful leaders, we do have, it's very common and it's wonderful that we have a sense of responsibility and honor to lead the organizations that we lead. We know why that organization is so important. But I think that for some leaders, there comes a time, not all the leaders, but for many leaders, there comes a time when you say something like, what's my mission? What's my passion? Am I only the mission of the organization? I mean, it's wonderful to be aligned with an organization that is aligned with your passion. I was talking with somebody who said, Kathryn, my purpose is all about classical music. And through the process, she realized, no, she is about connecting communities, social justice. It's really about connecting communities in a shared experience so that then other things can occur. And classical music was her vehicle to do that. So think about the way you introduce yourself. So I was talking with a woman who said that she is CEO of, and I can't remember how she described it, but it was a tortilla manufacturing company. And through some questions, what was revealed to her was, I champion voices that are not heard. I empower women. She had all these huge, elevated things that were guiding her. And once she knew that was her impact. Once she knew that, then she would figure out how to move through her day as a CEO of a tortilla manufacturing company, and what kinds of what the culture needed to be in that organization, what things she needed to delegate, what things she needed to keep her eye on. There's such practical applications. It's part of the reverse engineering once we know who we are, our purpose, and what we want. And as I said, it is a responsibility to live in that purpose because people are counting on us.
For clients who are unemployed, there is always a sense of urgency. So how do you work with them?
When I'm working with clients who are unemployed, there's an urgency, and yet we cannot skip the steps. We have to have clarity on who we are, what our strengths are, when we show up as our best self, what our impact is, and then how can we make sure that we create that every day. How can we feel joy, happiness, connection, success, be helping people every day? And, for some people, that means they need to get X hours of sleep. It can be very tangible. It needs to be that they are the decision maker. Or for some, it means they need to be a part of a collaborative team working together. There's zillions of causes and conditions that will be unique to each of us. And we have to figure that out so that is the important thing. We have to figure all this out so that we can help the people that are out there that are needing us to be us, to be you.
What is your advice for people that might wonder if this process really works?
One is that I now have enough experience, and I've got, 45, 50 now leaders who are living their dream career life scenario. So as a coach, I'm more confident, I am confident that this process works. So in fact, I offer this, it's a 5-week course. It's not even a course, it's a 5-week experience where after the first 7 days, and I do this with intentionality, my clients feel like, I've had the breakthrough. This is a lifelong journey, right? Who am I? But because there is often there's always urgency with the people who are calling me, I had to create a way to get to those breakthroughs and to get to the language. Language is also something really important. How can we, so we might know it, who we are, what we want, but now we've got to be able to speak it and amplify it in our job searches and in our interviews, etc. So I think to answer your question, maybe it's just that I have compassion and I have a sense of responsibility to move this along quickly. So I've created an intensive, I call it, an intensive which very quickly gets the ahas.
And this is the coaching program, right, Kathryn?
It is. And I do work with leaders both on the job, when they are on the job for challenges that they're having within an organization. And I work with leaders who are wanting to make a change or wondering if they want to make a change. And that's done one-on-one. But I'm really excited actually about the group programs because it's a lot easier to see patterns, to see lessons when we're looking at somebody else, and then we can say, wait, maybe this applies to me too. And also to have the power of the group reflecting back what they see in us. So the group program is just really, really powerful because it gets at results and breakthroughs quickly. Mm-hmm. And then there's a component also to the implementation. Okay, so like I said, now we know, especially if you're out of a job, but actually, there's no time to waste. We need to be leaders leading in our purpose, firing on all pistons, feeling joy, having good relationships with our family members and friends while we are a successful leader, all of this stuff. So I feel a great responsibility to helping people get this knowledge about themselves quickly and then into implementation. And I bring in consulting into this process too. So I'm actually looking at, after the breakthroughs happen, I'm looking at cover letter. Let's see, is that in alignment with this amazing person who's having all this impact that you just revealed? Or your bios, or your networking? How do you introduce yourself so that people can know who you really are and help you in a way that's going to be meaningful to you? How do you do an interview? How do you negotiate? Just the whole spectrum. And that's where that language and impact language really comes in handy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So looking back at your career, did you have a role model or a mentor that supported you along your path?
I've been so fortunate to have so many leaders that inspired me. And I really respect the leaders who can inspire through vision. Mm-hmm. Inspire by maybe holding a vision that others can't yet see, but we believe them because they know and they have the confidence and they can help us create the path to that vision, even if we can't see it yet.
So, Kathryn, what are your thoughts on generosity and leadership?
I love that question because generosity is such an important part of, all of our world, in the nonprofit and as a transformational leader. And I'm pausing because it is almost a second nature that I have to think about how to articulate it. Mm-hmm. So I guess the answer is that it's key. Even in, as entrepreneur, I'm now an entrepreneur as well, right? I have this business. Mm-hmm. And when I work with my coach, especially early on when I had to, do something I'd never done before, like a Facebook Live or, something that kind of put me out there. So a resistance in doing something is actually a sign that I'm thinking more about myself than the people I serve. Mm-hmm. And that's a terrible thought. So I think that your question about generosity is like, we want to be generous with our time. We want to be generous with our compassion. We want to be generous with our money. Generosity, for me, does two things. One, it focuses us on others. And two, it creates momentum. And momentum is really an important tool when we're on this journey of being strong, successful leaders.
Mm-hmm. And in which way do you think that media affects the leadership style in your industry or any industry?
I think in the arts and culture sector, mm-hmm. and maybe nonprofits in general, but I think in general, as leaders, it's giving us the opportunity as leaders to show ourselves and not hide behind, press releases or, brochures or these structures. The social media component is challenging all of us to think about what is our voice as a leader, and maybe also even taking ourselves with a little grain of salt. Like we can't always be perfect, because with social media, the expectation is that what you see is what you get. Now, I know that's not always true, especially with social media, but I could probably answer your question a lot of different ways. But right now, what's coming up for me, it's a real opportunity for us as leaders to find and share our voice and having intentionality in that. What do we really want to say and to whom and why? Mm-hmm. And let's not waste everybody's time, but let's really think about the impact that we want to have and how we want to help others and what they need to hear from us.
Are there any traits that leader needs to have to be successful?
In the context of this conversation, I'm really thinking a lot about how important it is to have self-knowledge, self-understanding, because we can get frustrated if we're not doing what we're meant to be doing. We can get frustrated with others. So I think that one of the traits is to really know ourselves, know our value, know our impact, and know when we're in a situation where that's not in alignment, and how to get out of that or get into something that is in alignment. So that self-awareness is a really important trait. I think also, leaders, it can be really difficult to be in a leadership role just because it can be lonely sometimes, lonely at the top, lonely when we're holding a vision. It can be frustrating when other people might not see the vision that we have, and that perhaps goes back to your question about traits. So instead of us getting frustrated when people aren't getting it, how can we understand and have compassion and look inward and say, okay, how can I better communicate? Because this vision that I'm holding is really exciting. So how can I enroll and engage others by shifting my perspective, by shifting my language, by shifting my strategies? So that ability to look inward so that we can lead others and enroll and engage others.
So Kathryn, how do you evaluate your own success?
Thank you. A great question. So for as long as I can remember, I think that I've been very aware of helping people move from a point A to a point B. And it's in knowing where we want to go that we can then answer the questions, how? How should I do that? What should I do next? And helping people move from point A to point B has expanded over my career and actually over my life. In the beginning, it was in production and operations and backstage, literally helping have equipment moved and at the right time in the place on stage, or facilities, having them be equipped and what they need. So literally moving from things from point A to point B, and then that's expanded in all of my roles. And now I'm helping organizations and individuals move from their success, where you are right now, to something new. So with organizations, that's during a time of transition and they're moving to their permanent leader. And with individuals, it's moving into a next chapter of leadership, a next chapter of their life. And that really is a mission of mine, is, help people have the impact that you're meant to achieve. And when you do that, when my clients do that, when my friends do that, that's how I have impact in the world. So in that context of my own personal mission of helping people and organizations be their best selves, I suppose then I measure my success in, am I creating the causes and conditions that allow me to do that? So today, was I able to show up as my full, alive self? Was I able to connect authentically with the people and a person that needs my support? I always think about resistance, and resistance is a sign that I'm thinking, or that we are thinking more about ourselves than the people who need us. So am I doing things that might be a little bit outside of my comfort zone in order so that I can help others? So the measure of my success is, am I showing up fully, without voices in my head, without holding back, without resisting in any way, so that I can connect with others?
And any suggestions to folks who are experiencing setbacks in their careers and their lives? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if you are a successful leader, you will have setbacks. You will have transition. You maybe will be fired at least once. You don't have to be, but, many of us have been. And it's normal. It's just like what I tell organizations who are in transition. Congratulations. You've been around long enough to have transition. So just know that a setback, well, here's the other thing. How do we know it's a setback? Until we know what our purpose is and where we're wanting to be, what we really, really want. Because sometimes setbacks turn out to be the door through which all is revealed. So I don't know, I'm smiling right now because if you're experiencing a setback, it's an opportunity to really look at what you want and evaluate how you can leverage the setback to get you to your new point B.
So what I'm hearing, Kathryn, is don't get down on yourself, stay positive, and think about things that could come out of a setback.
Yes, and look, we are lifelong learners, hopefully. So every setback, we can look at what things can we take responsibility for, what occurred that was out of our control. But again, I would look at it in the context of, isn't that interesting? And now what happens? What's next?
Any final thoughts for us?
Well, Biana, I mean, this has been such a great conversation for me. You've asked me some great questions that have caused me to think, and hopefully the conversation was able to be followed. To me, it felt very circular in a wonderful way. So I have an invitation, actually, for your audience. Mm-hmm. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. So I was thinking, I took the one big problem, so if I had to boil everything down when I'm working with leaders, so I took the one big problem that I saw that everyone was facing, and I created an e-guide for your community of leaders. So for anyone who's right now feeling a pulling towards something new, they're at a crossroads, either positive or negative, maybe you're feeling stuck, even if you've already just today accepted a new job or you're happy in your current role, I've got an e-guide that I think could really help. It'll help you answer some of these foundational questions that we've got to answer first about ourselves. So what do I want? Why? What's the impact that I was meant to have? And then how can I get it? And how can I lead this wonderful balanced life and have the ever elusive work-life balance? How can I have the salary that I want? All of these things that we've been talking about. So I've written an article. It's in an e-guide. It's downloadable. And your listeners can go to createyourdreamcareer.com.
Okay.
And I sometimes think, I wish I had called it Create Your Dream Career Life Everything, because we don't just talk about your work life. You're you are more than a job title. You are more than your work life. So yes, for this free e-guide, it's createyourdreamcareer.com. It's going to help you answer some foundational first before you go and write your cover letters and you do your networking and have your first 90 days on the job where you need to come in and tell everybody and inspire everybody about what you all will be working on together. It'll help you know what to do next.
And what would be the best way to contact you?
I'd like to just give my phone number and email for people to get a hold of me. So it's Kathryn R Martin, that's my name. And my phone number on the West Coast is 858-761-4928. And my email is Kathryn, Kathryn, @KathrynRMartin.com.
And with that, thank you, Kathryn, very much for being our guest tonight.
Thank you, Biana, and thank you to everyone listening in.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Leadership with Biana Kovic Show. Remember that you're all leaders in your own rights, and the impact that you're meant to achieve starts with small acts of kindness, curiosity, and generosity. Please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you again, and until next time.